And here I thought the Japanese list was weird. So, in case you are like me and you've been very busy and you haven't had time to take a look at things, or you've lived under a rock, the new restriction list dropped on July 8th. Unfortunately, it dropped quite late in the evening on the 8th here in Japan, and I came back from my locals very late, and then on Saturday I went to Tochigi, which is like an hour and a half away from me, to participate in a premium VGCS where I got top 8. Very cool. Unfortunately, I lost to Ripples in top 8, and it was pretty close, but unfortunate, so my run ended there. First place prize won $150 worth of Amazon gift cards, so I was kind of hoping to get that just in time for Prime Day. Anyway, today we have the new restriction list to talk about, right? So the Japanese restriction list came out way back in like middle of June. It's been basically a month by now. And you know, some parts of it were pretty understandable, like the standard part. And then there was parts like the V and the premium part that were like, huh, why do you hit Kokushigarasu? What did Nizar ever do to you? And Busho was just like, we don't like stuff that kills your hand. Therefore bad, therefore no. So I was like, okay, thank you, Bouchard, very cool. We'll take that, I guess. But then the English side was like, oh, please wait, we have things to work out, so we're going to give you the restrictions on July 8th. And we're like, okay, sure. I mean, you're going to take that long to figure it out, like almost a month. Surely you're going to hit like all the things that we need to be hit, right? Especially because this ban list is being revealed 2 weeks before Bro starts. And if you take a look at other people's reactions, and I'm sure other content creators have done reaction videos or discussion videos, and especially if you look at the original tweet, which I'll link in the description, there's a whole lot of people not being very happy in the replies, and there's over 100 quote retweets, which is, you know, it's the, you know, they beating your ass in the QRTs meme quite literally realized in our community. So let's talk about it, because I did want to discuss the restriction list at length, and especially the standard part is the same between English and Japanese, and I've been playing in the new meta here in Japan of post-restriction lists for the last 2 weeks basically, so I can actually give you a bit of an insight / impression of what this new format looks like. So let's start it off with standard. Now of course we had the exact same hits between both languages in standard, this and also in Korean. I think in Korean also was the same hits. So this being of course Dark Strain Dragon put to 1, and the choice restriction between Magnolia Elder and Inlet Pulse Dragon. Starting off with Dark Strain, this was basically like Bastion is one of the most popular decks in Japan. They like their knights over here, what can I say? It's always been a popular deck, and you kind of have like the draw engine of this deck being Lagrail as well as Olden of course, and then you have the consistent booster enabler that is Dark Strain. But you may be thinking, okay, well Dark Strain, whatever, we have Pride to Protect. That is just the same card. Well, not really, because Pride to Protect requires 2 cards from hand to be able to play it. And it's like, sure, you play it and it's set for the rest of the game, but Dark Strain also was a body on board that didn't require you to discard anything. It just required you to have Soul, which you fueled with stuff like Raph Luke that you used anyway. So Pride to Protect is 2 cards from hand for nothing on board, whereas this is 1 card from hand, and like, yes, you need to set up Soul all the time, but then the Soul setup also means you're putting power across the board, so obviously Dark Strain was the better card. So it's like, yes, now people can play 1 Dark Strain and like 3 Pride to Protects or 4 Pride to Protects if they want, but it's not as good, so they basically taking Bastion down a notch, and that's it, which I think is a nice way to restrict the deck. Like, you're not killing it outright, you're basically saying like, oh, that's just a little bit too much, we're gonna need you to step down a little bit. Now of course Kairi and I think Nirvana are on the watch list, because Nirvana is really good in Japan and it tops a lot, and a lot of Nirvana players are really good at what they do, whereas of course Kairi has been kind of like the second best deck in the format for quite a while, but it's kind of like third best, fourth best here because of how much Bastion there is and also how good Nirvana players are. And I think like I've played against Kairi a lot in tournaments, but it definitely doesn't feel as oppressive as Magnolia was with Inlet. And now speaking of which, Magnolia and Inlet Pulse, now that's a deck that I play myself quite a lot too, and I played quite a bit until, literally I played it until the day it got hit. I played in a tournament right before it got hit. And I was like, you know, I mean, it is unfair. Like if you go first and you open 3 inlets and you just attack with all 3, and then you put them to Soul and you draw 3, and then you ride your Elder, and then the Elder calls 1 out, and then you use Spiritual Body Condensation, and you call another 1 out, and then you just keep looping these inlets over and over and over again. You draw a bunch of cards every single turn while pushing out so many attacks, and you also have a really good edge against certain matchups because you clear your own board like that, and it's just really good. So yes, like it's a pretty unfair draw engine that Magnolia used, which was originally made for Flagberg, but of course future ride lines, as long as they can make 4 attacks per turn, will be able to use it. But let's see if Zorga as well as Rorowa. Well, I guess Rorowa can already use 4 attacks technically with the Momoke token, but let's see if, you know, Leonorn as well as our friend Zorga can get 4 attacks one day, and if they can use Inlet. If not, we'll see. But the interesting thing is that ever since this restriction list was active in Japan, the Stoichea deck that has been topping the most is, surprise, surprise, Flagberg. Now in Japan, Flagberg has a promo which allows you to count +1 to let it attack from the back row and gain like 10k power, and it's really strong because this way you can have like 2 attacks from Inlet, 2 attacks from Ascendance Assault, 1 attack from that in the back row, and then 1 attack from Vanguard. So 6 attacks in a turn plus the really annoying guard district that Flagberg has. But if let's say you don't open Ascendance, you have 2 attacks from Flagberg, 1 attack from a random rear, 1 attack from the back row rear guard promo, and then you have the Flagberg. So when eventually the Flagberg promo comes out in English, this is going to be really good. Now of course English doesn't have that promo, but English does have a Flagberg list that came first in a huge event in Florida that runs like a bunch of orders, and this list actually came second in my FRF tournament, and you can find that on my Twitter. I always post the top 8 of the event after they're done, and it's a pretty strong and consistent list too that can push out a bunch of attacks and still be very annoying with the Flagberg guard restrict. So I think going forward Flagberg really will be the best Stoichea deck, at least until Leonorn comes out, because Leonorn does look pretty good but does need a little bit extra to kind of like make it even better. But I don't think it's the best deck. I think Kairi might be the next best deck. Verena is still really good. I think Bastion will still be very good too. I know some of my friends that play Bastion have been doing pretty well with it. Orphis Regis as well as Grave Zorga have been getting some tops here and there here as well in like unofficial tournaments or in locals. And then finally Prison is still a very strong deck, just quite fragile. And of course the builds differ quite a bit. I myself have changed my build quite a bit, and now I think that without the Bagu motor the deck is just not capable of much. So Standard will be fun to watch, and especially now going into BRO, it'll be cool to see it before the actual DBTO6. Whereas here in Japan, we don't really care about this meta, because the thing is, like, everyone still plays Standard for fun, and you know, just to go to locals and like win prizes and like shop promos and stuff like that. But we don't actually have any major tournaments until probably at least September, which is after, or I guess we have the Vanguard City, like the Vanguard City trial, which is starting in a couple weeks, same time as BRO actually. And so the first couple of those will be played with the actual, you know, with the current meta, but the last one I think is played the weekend of the release of DBTO6. So that'll be a new meta with a whole new set, whole new ride lines, whole new mechanics and stuff like that. So there we're going to be much more interested in how the DBTO6 will perform, and then after that it'll be WGP season, which means that with WGP season we will have, you know, DBTO6 as well as Lyrical 3, and then the probably second half of the WGP season is going to be, you know, the D Series 7. So the meta that is right now without DBTO6 and without the new trial decks isn't as effective, I guess, or we don't really care about it as much, because in 2 weeks time we have the new trial decks as well, and those will be playable out the box too. So yeah, talked about Standard for quite a bit, but honestly it's a good restriction list, and it's probably the best part of this one, the least controversial one I think as well. They kind of hit what they needed to, and they didn't what they didn't need to, and that's just good. Now for V premiums, already talking about Japanese side, they hit Kokshigarasu because they don't want to have things that kill hand. English didn't hit it, which is interesting. So English says it's cool to get rid of your opponent's hand. Keep that in mind, because at least they got rid of the deck that has too much hand, which is of course the Deer Prisms. So Rosa has been banned, straight up 0 copies. And this is something that's been a long time coming. Like, we've been asking for Prisms to be a hit in a important way for a long time. They gave it a soft wet noodle hit at the very start of this year, but then it's still like Prisms were still amazing, and they still topped by far the most I think of all the decks in V here, you know, in overseas, not in Japan. In Japan it's not really played as much. It's still unrestricted, just like a bunch of other decks that are restricted in English. And so of course, you know, there is this feeling of like, yes, finally you got rid of Prisms. We've been waiting for this for a very long time, so good on you, thank you for getting rid of them. But there's of course a much bigger problem, that is Gurgwit, which is like, why is Percival still at 1 when Gurgwit and High roll into that? Also Holy Shine is coming out in like a month, so that deck is only going to get worse. Now the thing is that with the Japanese side of the restriction list, they announced it before Clan Collection 5 and 6 were out, and they basically said like, we're not going to hit anything preemptively from that set because we want to see how it's going to perform. So even though Luard and Holy Shine looked very yikes, they basically said we're gonna wait and see and then decide. The thing is, when the September restriction list comes, there's been no like big major V Premium events here because of the off season that we have right now in the summer. So it's like the September restriction list will come, and I don't think we're gonna see any hits for Luard or Gurgwit, whereas like in English, BRO finishes before this release of Clan Collection, so we also won't see any results. So I also don't think that the September list will hit anything for these decks either, unless, like, I don't know, we have some other problem deck that comes up now that, you know, prisms are dead, and they maybe make you take away the Percival or something like that. But if you're expecting, like, the Clan Collection cards to have some sort of hits in September, there's not going to be any data for that. Like, there's just not going to be any data for that until, like, the first batch of BCSs is done. So yeah, it's like, Prism hit, thank you, finally, right? Because also, talking about Bermuda, we've had so many other good Bermuda decks coming out recently where it's like, you have no reason to play them because Prisms exist. Like, Anj is really good, no reason to play it, Prisms exist. Revere is really good, no reason to play it. Melody's still pretty damn good, no reason to play it. And it's like, now we have the duos coming out in Clan Collection, like, you wouldn't have not had a reason to play it because, well, now, like, you could have just played Prisms instead, right? So honestly, Rosa being gone is a good thing in my opinion, both for the clan and for the overall V Premium player base, but is it enough? Not quite. I think Percival should have also been gone on this list too. I also did not expect any preemptive hits for Clan Collection because of what the Japanese side decided. So that's V. I think there's not much else to talk about because there's just one card being hit. And also I don't play V as much. Like, honestly, my most played formats are Premium and Standard. Standard, I'm not even sure which ones I play the most between those two. They're very equally matched. But so my opinions on V aren't as strong for now. I think that Clan Collection 5 and 6 do raise the power level a little bit higher. And also the thing is that, like, a lot of, like, the local tops for V Premium that, like, could be data, of course, for Bushiroad are like, yeah, there's some Luwards and some Gurgwits and, like, you know, some other stuff, but then there's also, like, Steam Maidens, and it's like, are you really gonna hit Steam Maidens? Like, no, of course not. So yeah, so that's a interesting thing. And then finally, Premium. Look at this beautiful Premium page. There is one side that I think I'm pretty happy about, and then one side that I'm like, how the hell does this make any sense? So let's talk about the side that makes a bit more sense, which is, of course, the Fabricated Dragon of Ruination being hit to 1 in Mega Colony specifically, which I'm pretty sure is the first time a D series card has been hit in Premium, because this is a Stoicheia card that is not usable in specifically Mega Colony. There might have been some others and I just forgot, I'm sorry, it's like midnight over here. So, Fabricated Dragon of Ruination, if you didn't know what it does, when you ride it, you choose an order in your drop zone and you use its effect for free. So you would use the grade 2 dog from Zorga to mill the book order, and then you would ride this thing and then draw 3, and then you would Persona Ride over it and then activate the book again and then draw 1 for Persona Ride, so you would draw 4 every time you Persona Ride, while going into Gridor all the time and, like, forcing your opponent to stop playing the game and not be able to, you know, like, call anything from deck or soul, etc. And also not being able to, you know, play normally unless they re-ride their Vanguard. So yeah, this is a good hit because, of course, putting this card to 1 shuts down the consistency of this deck because, well, it's like the consistency to draw 4 every turn. Because with 1 copy, I mean, you're only going to do that effect once, and, like, it's a pretty sacky one of them. And I've heard people talking about, like, playing, like, Flagberg, you know, Order, Colony, and things like that, but I don't know if it's really, like, it's not really the same because, like, yes, you can draw off of inlets and stuff and then call them out again, but it requires a lot more setup and a lot more, like, pieces floating around, whereas this was 1 card that achieved everything. But it's also interesting to think that, like, this card is only to 1 in Mega Colony, so, like, you can technically still put it in 4 times with a dog that searches orders 4 times in a Neonectar or Great Nature deck, and then just pair it with a good Stride and then try to do something with it. But of course, it's nowhere near as crazy as Gridora, which was just a floodgate, which of course isn't very fun to play around. You know, I was talking about this with either, I can't remember if it was Kai or Maxime or Derek, how, like, you know, they hit Zinc and they hit, like, Chaos stuff because Chaos isn't fun to play around. So it's good to hit it because, you know, it makes it so like either less people bring it, or the people that lose to it, I guess, like, at least don't feel as bad about it, I guess. So there was definitely a line of play where they just hit Gridora or just ban Gridora outright, but they instead chose to just hit this, which means Gridora is still going to be around, but in a much less powerful Mega Colony, which can't draw as many cards. So I wonder what's going to happen in BRO. Like, are Mega Colony players going to just play regular Mega Colony with, like, I don't know, like freaking Giraffa, or are we going to be seeing people just try to reinvent the wheel and play like Flagberg Order Colony? So yeah, I'm quite curious to see how that's going to go. I think the hit to 1 is pretty good. It doesn't outright kill Gridora and that whole idea of like a Floodgate deck, because there are still some people that prefer to play those kind of Floodgate decks as much as it's not fun for the rest of us. And I personally did not really have the biggest problem with Order Colony in the meta. I think if you practice the matchup, it's actually very rewarding when you know how to play around it. But of course, some decks just can't play outright, so of course that's a big thing. I know people expect expected things like Ripple hit, Narukami hit, like Stunverse hit, etc. I personally don't think that they would hit Narukami because there's no data on Exterminate yet. And like here in Japan, like yesterday at the VGCS, we had 7 DP players, which was the most played clan, and then 6 Narukami players, which was the second most played clan. And out of those 6 Narukami players, only 1 went to top 8. And out of the 7 DP players, 3 of us went to top 8. So that also kind of, you know, paints a bit of a picture. And I think if Geomaglas ever got hit or something in DP, I would definitely cry. God, that would actually shatter my soul now that I think about it. But enough talking about Order Colony. The other hit on this restriction list is, of course, Nightmare Dolls. Except not really, because actually it's Harry that got hit. So there's a choice restriction between Masquerade Master Harry, which is the old stride that Pale Moon has, as well as Alice, the V-Series Alice. Now you might be thinking, oh cool, okay, it's a Nightmare Doll hit, except it's not, because they still have Dark Lord Princess and Yvette, which are their main strides, and they can still dust you with no problem. And most importantly, Leslie and Ginny can still be used freely together with Alice and Carol and all that other stuff. So basically, this restriction doesn't really do anything to Nightmare Dolls, but instead, it takes away the Nightmare Doll package from the Harry deck, which wanted to use Alice, but now it cannot. But it's also like, okay, but not that many people are playing Link Joker in the first place in Premium, so it's like, whatever, right? That's not really a point. So it just feels like they, like Jay put it best, it's like they looked at what Nightmare Doll players flip as fodder and hit it, and it's just like, great, fantastic. It's as if you looked at what like Stunverse players flipping up their VMAX, and then it's like, oh, we need to ban VMAX because Stunverse players like flip it face up. It's like, no, that's not how it works. So yeah, I don't know why they held back on the Nightmare Doll hit so much. I definitely think this deck should have been hit way harder, and I think with BRO coming up in 2 weeks, we're going to be seeing this deck everywhere. I think it's going to be all over the damn place, and it's just going to be nasty. I'm inclined to think that if Nightmare Dolls top all over the place in BRO, they are going to hit it in September. And I was not expecting any preemptive hits, neither to Ripples nor to Narukami, simply because the clan collection cards are not out yet, and that's the main indicator. Plus Exterminate is also like just came out, so there's no data on it yet. And it's just like, you know, you can't hit Vowing Reverse because it's not out, and you can't hit Ripples because it's not out either, although they've done preemptive hits before, but their logic and their kind of stance this time around is like, we will not do it, we're gonna watch the result and then decide. But because Ripples aren't out for BRO season, that means that there will be no data on it, so therefore get ready for a nice BCS season full of Ripples everywhere, because that deck is nasty as hell. There is a feature match video of my top 8 match, my top 8 best of 3 set against Ripples, and you will get to see how nasty that deck is. As long as they open Odysseus, they can use 0 damage, they can 0 damage gaming, make 5 axles on turn 3 going first. And if you give them 4 damage, you're eating like 11 plus attacks. So you better find those Honolees, because even if you do, Mr. Thawas will snipe them off of your board and then still do all of those attacks. So yeah, like, honestly, Ripples are insanely strong. I'm building the deck myself too, because I'm picking it up for pretty cheap, and it's, you know, that adjective describes the whole deck very well. It is cheap. So yes, maybe you'll naturally just kind of cycle out Nightmare Dolls because everyone's going to be on Ripples, but even then, I feel like Nightmare Dolls could be handled a bit better. Although I guess if we're going into a meta where Ripples never ever stride, then I guess it doesn't really matter in that sense. But again, that deck is also pretty weak in the sense of like, if you don't draw your Odysseus, the deck does like nothing, but then it's just like, just draw the Odysseus forehead. So yeah, I don't know. I'll talk about Odysseus more in the future. I know Commander Jaime already did some nice videos on the deck, so make sure you check those out, but I'll talk about the deck myself some more in the future too. But yeah, overall, this premium list, like, I don't know. I also was kind of afraid of like Narukami hits and whatnot and stuff like that, but mainly I thought Gridor would get banned, but I think their way of doing it is okay. And it definitely feels like some stuff is missing on the premium side. I feel like they could have been a bit harsher maybe, especially when it comes to Nightmare Dolls. Like Nightmare Dolls is just still left out in the open, and it can still do whatever the hell it wants, and that's just how it is. So yeah, this has been my ban list discussion video. It's a bit longer than I thought. Honestly, I didn't think I'd have this much to say about it, but I guess I did. I love this game. I have a lot of fun with it. Order Colony is also picking up here in Japan. People are starting to bring it a little bit more to major events, while Ripples are also going pretty crazy. So it's going to be interesting to see how things develop. Premium's been picking up a lot in Japan too, and it's been really fun to watch it develop here in this Japanese scene in its own kind of meta. And I'm curious to see what the future of the format holds as well. And of course, for English format, I'm excited to see what BRO holds, because that is going to be a huge major that is going to probably change the meta quite a bit, at least before Clan Collection comes out. But anyway guys, that's going to be it for me today. If you want to check out the ban list yourself, link in the description and all that kind of stuff. If you like this video, please give it a like, and if you haven't already, please do subscribe. I see you guys subscribing, by the way. We're only 400 or less subs away from the 50k, and once we hit 50k, I've got a really cool special planned, so please support the channel. Thank you very much. Also, if you want to get some last minute practice in for BRO, we are having a premium tournament on our Discord server, which is open to all YouTube channel members as well as all Twitch subscribers. It's going to be next Saturday at 9 a.m. JST, so you can join us if you'd like to get some practice in for the English format for BRO. But anyway, guys, that's going to be it for me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.